You can see on the screen, and thank you, welcome. You all have been putting in greetings in our chat, which is fantastic. My name is Nina Samota. I am currently the chair for Voice4Change England, and on behalf of my fellow trustees and staff of Voice4Change England, a warm welcome to you all. Thank you so much for joining us this evening from wherever you are joining us. It's a great pleasure welcoming you to our annual general meeting this year. We will be looking backwards to the financial year of obviously 2023-24, but my colleagues, we have a packed agenda. We have colleagues, our keynote speakers in the room as well. And thank you to colleagues from BSL. We also have interpreters in this gathering this evening. So and that's for access for everyone. So do pin them on your screens should you need to do so. So we'll make a start, colleagues, and by way of introduction, I've already said I am Nina Samota. I'm currently chair for Voice4Change England. My day job is I'm Associate Professor for Criminology and Criminal Justice at St. Mary's University in London. And it's a great pleasure to welcome you all to our annual general meeting. A quick note about just housekeeping, make sure that obviously your mics are turned off as per our previous screen, and do put in any kind of comments or questions you may have as we go along and move through the evening. Our colleagues will be picking up everything on the chat in the background. So thank you for that in advance. Just to then kick off with, welcome to colleagues who actually know Voice4Change England and our work, but also a warm welcome to colleagues who perhaps are joining us for the first time. Just to say a little bit about Voice4Change England, who we are. We are a national membership organization dedicated to the Black and minoritized ethnic, voluntary, community and social enterprise sector. Our aim is to build a stronger and inclusive civil society to improve the life outcomes for Black, minoritized and ethnic and other disadvantaged populations who are subjected to forms of disadvantage and discrimination. Our expertise lies in offering them infrastructure and capacity building, resilience and influence and development. This specialized expertise is foundational for our dedication to deliver impactful services to our communities. And therefore, as an organization, we also have 5 strategic aims. The first one is to provide leadership and resources to increase our sector involvement as a whole, as a collective, and its representation in key decision-making and policy forums. Second objective is strategic aim is to increase awareness and respect of our sector, its role, its activities, its impact, and added value. Our third aim is to strengthen the Black and minoritized ethnic sector and race equality through direct infrastructure, service delivery, advocacy, and improving infrastructure provision through partnership and collaboration. Our fourth aim is to increase opportunities for BME organizations to develop resources and sustainability through enterprise creativity and sector-led grant making. Our final aim is to harness the BME voice through partnership, research, and consultation to ensure that our perspectives are heard in issues that shape our society. So those are, colleagues, some of the overarching aims that we are working towards. Like I said earlier, we are covering a period, so looking back in the past, and as we progress through our agenda, I'll be calling on my colleagues to give updates on activities and information, both financial but also operational, the kind of activities that our colleagues have been busy delivering. So we will be covering some of our work from that period, looking back, particularly at our projects and our achievements and the impact that has been achieved via the National Community Lottery Fund and Catalyst programs. We'll also be looking at our Deputy Director Sharmin Shahjahan will be talking about our impact through the City Bridge Foundation and the Catalyst kind of program, which is also based in London. We'll also be talking about some of the impactful work and really important work about increasing participation in our democracy through the work that we have been doing in partnership with the Greater London Authority. We'll also be highlighting some of the work that we have done with our Home Truths 2 program of work in partnership with Akiwumi, and also designing different ways in understanding and mainstreaming support for our civil society and taking practical actions looking at anti-racism and promoting race equity. So there's a whole strand of work under that theme. And also looking at some of the work that was funded by Comic Relief and the National Lottery Community Fund, and also the Pathway Funds. So I think it'll be a really interesting evening connecting some of our invited guest speakers who are going to build on some of the themes and activities that Voice4Change England has been instrumental in shaping, but also influencing policy and practice both nationally and also regionally. So a warm welcome also to both our guest speakers who are here with us this evening. The theme of this year's annual general meeting, again, colleagues, this is much about reflecting what we have achieved in the past, but also learning those lessons and building as a team, not just of our trustees, but also of our hardworking staff team, looking to the future and building on some of our achievements. So our theme for this year is breaking barriers and building futures, reflecting on our unwavering commitment to challenging systemic inequalities and fostering resilience within our communities. And these strands seem to be some of our key aims. They percolate in some of the work that we are trying to do currently, but also addressing some of the related policy issues in this regard. As we review our achievements over the past year, we also look ahead to our upcoming Horizons London programme, which will bring a renewed commitment to a bold, Black, minoritized, ethnic-led movement for systems change, which also allows space for dismantling racial disparities, empowering our communities, and to shape a truly equitable and inclusive future. So this year's AGM will be an inspiring event where we not only discuss our organization's progress and future commitments, what we can add, what we can learn from each other, but also engaging with industry leaders at the forefront of breaking barriers and also building our communities and stronger futures collectively. So that is just by way of introduction. Colleagues, I also, as an overview from myself on behalf of my trustees, I also at this point in the annual general meeting also would like to invite or have any kind of new nominations to the Board of Trustees. We're always looking for new trustees. And I believe we do have one motion that I know of. Are there any others? If I can wait and see any hands going up or any of my colleagues in the background who might have information. We do have one nomination from Aman Aluwalia Hinrichs. Is Aman on the call this evening? We have received a nomination from Aman Aluwalia, and I'd like to propose that as one of the nominations for joining the Board of Trustees this evening. Is there any others in the background, Kunle or Azad?
No.
I don't see any.
No one else, sorry, thank you.
So thanks, Azad. At this point then, colleagues, I'd just like to invite somebody to second this motion of inviting Aman Ahluwalia Hinrichs to the Board of Trustees at Voice for Change England?
I'll second that. Ela.
Thanks very much, Ela. Ela Chandavarkar is our treasurer for Voice for Change England, and you'll hear from her soon when she covers her report. But thanks very much, Ela. And is Aman on the call today?
You've got Carl who's raised his hand.
Yes, Carl, my fellow trustee. Yes.
Thanks, Nina. Thanks, Azad. Yeah, just to highlight the name of Doreen Sangster, who was previously mentioned that she would like to join as well, Nina. I don't know if that was part of already factored in.
Fantastic. We have 2 nominations in this regard. Thank you very much, Carl. So happy to take these 2 motions forward as part of the process of our AGM, if that's okay with our colleagues. Yes. Thank you very much. We can make a note of that. Thank you very much, Carl. Thank you very much, Ela. And so that just brings me to moving our AGM forward. We are slightly ahead of time, which is great, which allows us to actually better engage and a longer engagement with our guest speakers this evening. So if I can invite my colleague, Ela Chandavarkar, who is our treasurer at Voice for Change England, to present our end of year accounts for 2023-2024. Over to you, Ela.
Thanks, Nina. Priya, could I have the slide? Okay, thanks. So 23-24 was a transitional year for us. From 2020, we had seen a great deal of funding, which was primarily to help BME organizations and communities deal with COVID. 2023 was seen as a post-pandemic year, and this funding ended. Although we continue to see the result of a devastating impact on BME communities in terms of rising poverty, debt, and inability to meet daily necessities, further ill health with many suffering from long COVID, and the impact of illness and bereavement, we felt the need to continue to support the organizations that supported these disadvantaged communities. However, there was a gap in securing new resources for this work. And during this gap, the trustees agreed to use our unrestricted reserves to keep the organization and this much needed support going. You can see on the statement of financial activity, or SOFA, that we had reserves that we brought from the previous year of around 110,000. We were successful in repositioning the financial future of the organization through securing core grants from the City Bridge Foundation and the National Lottery Community Fund. Trustees also put in place a fundraising strategy to make sure our unrestricted reserves went up. I would like here to commend particularly the Deputy Director Sharmin for her role in securing several health sector and other contracts which have helped build our reserves back to the previous levels. Voice for Change has now moved from a main function of supporting organizations through the pandemic to becoming an organization with a diverse range of projects which support BME organizations, and you'll hear more about these later. If you look at this statement of financial activity, or SOFA, you can see that our total income for the year was 1,686,402, of which 1,656,795 was restricted income and 29,607 was unrestricted. Our total expenditure was 696,113, and it left us a net balance of 990,289. This balance looks high, and it is mainly because of the Pathway Fund, of which you will hear more later. And I particularly like to welcome Asha because she used to be on the board of Voice for Change England. And so I'm very pleased we're continuing our collaboration. The Pathway Fund is a social investment fund that was incubated by Voice for Change, and it received a lot of funding in 23-24, but the program started later, so the money was largely spent in the following year. So that's why we have a rather high balance. So at the end of the year, the balance was 1110966 with 22,700 unrestricted for Voice4Change and 1078266 restricted mainly for Pathway. If we look closer at the income streams, we'll see the difference in income between Voice4Change and the Pathway Fund. So if you could go to the next slide, please. Okay. This is Voice4Change income, and I'd like to thank all our funders, SSE, GLA funds through Groundwork, City Bridge Foundation, and the National Lottery Fund. And you can see that the total income for Voice4Change in that year was actually 474,004. And if you go to the next slide, yeah, this is the funding for Pathway, which is 1.2 million. And you can see that's 72% of our total income. However, as I said before, this was a transitional year and Voice4Change is now in a much more stable position. The Pathway Fund is now an independent company and almost all the funds have been transferred to this company. Voice4Change budget alone is now in the region of 1.5 million, although a large part of this is grants to distribute. Our core income is around 700,000, which is double the amount this year. And we've also been able to raise much more towards our unrestricted reserves to keep us in a stable position. So do come back next year for more on our ongoing financial story. So does anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Ela. Yes.
Okay.
If I can invite any questions from colleagues, if they have any regarding our report from our treasurer. If not, you can put some observations, comments, whatever feedback you wish to give in the chat. Thank you very much. Ela, thanks very much for taking us through that section. It is customary. It is actually really important part of each AGM. And yeah, yes.
We've got one question from James Murphy. He's raised his hand.
Yes, please, James, if you want to, is it in the chat? Okay, I'll just read that out.
It's not in the chat.
No, sorry.
Why don't you just let James speak?
James, please do unmute and ask your question.
That's can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great stuff. I just wondered when Voice4Change as an organisation does have kind of income like the funds that were going to be moved to and have been moved to Pathway. How do you guys hold that? Do you hold that in a cash reserve, or is that invested? I'm kind of interested in the systems and processes that sit behind holding something like that. Thank you.
No, we haven't invested. We just held the funds and in a separate account and have now transferred those funds to the Pathway company. And we really left it up to the Pathway project to decide what to do with those funds because we were just holding them for the fund.
We've got
it
one
would have
more
been
question.
Good to have earned a lot more money from that.
Sorry
it wasn't our money.
Finicky question. Thank you.
Yeah.
We have one more from Kunle. I think Kunle's got his hands up.
Yeah, it's just 2 quick points of clarification. First of all, if anybody wants the full financial report, it can be downloaded from our website. So it's the full report is available. And secondly, just in terms of the latter question, Pathway, as Asha will explain later, it's now set up on its own independent path as a limited liability company, which may probably transition eventually to becoming an independent charity on its own. Voice4Change were the host for the project, and I'm very proud to have been one of the founders. as it grew out of a discussion which actually took place many years ago, a similar forum of this. In fact, it was an AGM where we discussed the possibility of setting up a BME-led social investment fund. So I'm really pleased to see that desire has actually come into something tangible and real. But as I say, Asha will have a lot more to say on that later. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Kunle. And James, thank you for asking that question. It allows us to explain, and in some ways, it allows us to live our purpose and mission as well. So as described by Kunle, how, Pathway came about, I believe that's actually worth celebrating. And we look forward to hearing a bit more about it from Asha later on. So that's great. Thank you very much, everyone. I would like now to invite Kunle Olulode, who is our director at Voice4Change England, to give his director's overview. Over to you, Kunle.
Thank you, Nina, and good evening, everyone. As the director who is asked to look back to 2023-24, it's often quite difficult because this is 2025 and you really want to talk about the things that you're doing in the here and now. But it's also always worth, I think, reflecting on where you've come from, and certainly in the short period from 23 to now. As Ila has indicated, the year 2023 was the year in which we fully came out of the COVID pandemic. And I think Voice4Change, like many organizations, was faced with new challenges and went through a process of reevaluation of the impact of those changes, not only on ourselves, but for the sector generally. And of course, one of the things that came out of that period, although we've been working on it for a long time, was the Pathway project. And as I said, we'll talk about that more later. But we also noted, I think in 23-24, that there was a continuation of certain themes that were there before the pandemic. And I think Ila has already touched on some of those things, that people were experiencing greater levels of homelessness. We have seen poor levels of new house building, creeping increases in unemployment and redundancies, and rising debt and greater difficulties for individuals and families to be able to access daily essentials. Poorer access to health services, something that Charmin, my deputy, has been trying to address through her work, was again a key theme brought about at the end of the pandemic. But I think the final point, and perhaps most pertinent to our part of the sector, is the return of general underfunding of the BME sector. I can't deny that during the pandemic itself, there were improvements in funding, and certainly in terms of addressing the emergencies. But it seemed like as soon as the emergencies were over, we went back to the same kind of relationships with funders and foundations that have been there before. But for us, as I said, at Voice4Change, it meant a rethink in how our infrastructure support could operate. Our answer was to transform a small national operation into a significant grants distributor targeting BME organizations. I would say that over the last probably 2 years, we have probably generated something like 2.7 million in administered emergency funding to over 200 groups. These vital funds stopped many community groups from either enduring detrimental funding losses or worst case scenario, becoming unviable and ceasing to operate. We have helped those organizations meet the demands for their services. But we're still in the throes of trying to meet that challenge. And later on, Charmin will go into more depth in relation to the projects that we've developed in order to do that. More specifically, I would say that if I'm looking at 2024, despite efforts to revive the economy post-COVID, the UK faced stagnant growth and mounting national debt posed a major challenge, really, for long-term financial stability, with terrible consequences for individuals and families that were already hugely challenging. Leaving aside the picture that we see in places like Birmingham, where local government has been faced with virtual financial collapse, with significant cuts in funding to community-based services, a new reality has formed the background to the world in which we were living in at that time, especially as we had local elections and general elections that took place in 23-24. The outcome of those elections, in many ways, signal to us many of the things that we're perhaps more familiar with now today in 2025. General election took place on the 4th of July, 2024. And the Labour Party, as you all know, led by Keir Starmer, won by a landslide victory. The governing Conservative Party ended 14 years of Conservative rule. This was just outside the time that this report covers. But in the run-up to the election, certainly before the end of the financial year, I and many other leaders within the charity sector were having discussions with Labour Party policy advisors in terms of what the future government priorities might look like. And for those of you that can remember back to 24 and 23, Starmer outlined 5 missions for an incoming Labour government. And those 5 things being to kickstart economic growth, a mission to drive growth and rebuild Britain, to create a robust economy that benefits everyone, not just a select few, to make Britain a clean energy superpower, to deliver clean energy by 2030. The third one being take back our streets to create safer communities, ensure that the law enforcement is effective and trusted. To break down barriers to opportunity, particularly of interest to us, the government intended to reform childcare and education systems to ensure that there are no class ceilings on the ambitions of young people. And finally, most important one, to build an NHS fit for the future. Now, these 5 missions represented a long-term vision of national renewal, addressing many critical issues that we are faced in the UK today. And the hope was that by focusing on these areas, the government would create a more equitable and prosperous society for all citizens. For the voluntary sector, the thrust of the main policy driver of this mission-driven government was to bring to life a creation of a new covenant between the government and the voluntary sector. And those of you that study your press will know that last week on the 17th of July, the government launched publicly for the first time the new covenant between government and communities. And certainly in 23-24, I was appointed as one of the members on a covenant advisory board to look at the 4 elements and to put into, I suppose, some practical design what that relationship was going to look like. And so just to recapitulate the 4 elements, they are recognition and value, that civil society can see that their expertise has been listened to in the course of government policy design and service design. Partnerships and collaboration, that civil society organizations are actively and regularly engaged with government on issues that affect them, including a regular rhythm of constructive meetings. Thirdly, participation and inclusion. That government works closely with civil society organizations, including those that represent those with lived experience, to ensure inclusive engagement and wider participation in democracy and civil society. And then the final one, which is around transparency and data, that there's a coordinated approach to data collection and the understanding of evidence about how civil society functions. Now, I think many people in the sector have taken a view that it's very easy to be cynical about this new covenant and to question it. I think the general view is that we need to give it time to see how successful or not government engagement with the sector is going to go. In drawing on these 4 elements, we are sure to return to this discussion at our future AGM in 2026. And I know that in terms of the joint covenant board that's been proposed, there is going to be, hopefully, through Voice4Change, an opportunity for leaders of community organizations, charities, and third sector organizations to have a proper discussion about how we want to shape that relationship with government going forward, and also how we want to be represented. So take it from me, that's something that I'm very much committed to, and I know my team and staff are committed to, which is to ensure that democratic engagement with the central government is made meaningful. My final point, in terms of my overview, is just really to touch on something that I know has been at the forefront of a lot of people's thoughts as well, which is the difficulties of having debates on subjects that are contentious. The question of what's happening in Gaza, the issue of the riots that took place in the north, and the whole question of immigration, and even issues such as contemporary issues such as the relationship between transgender movements and the women's movement, are things that have polarized much of the discussion and discourse in sometimes a very unhealthy way. And so one of the things that I think I would make a plea to all of you that are here at this AGM tonight is to really think about how we can have these discussions and debates in a constructive manner without the kind of viciousness and career-ending kind of consequences that we've seen at times. I'm somebody who believes in the freedom of speech and the freedom of expression, and I'd like to retain that as part of our organization's general philosophy. But it's getting harder out there, and I think one of the real challenges, both for Voice4Change and for people throughout the sector, is to be able to carry out our discussions around these issues with a sense of purpose and not simply as a mechanism, as I say, for causing division and fractions. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much, Kunle. Very insightful, and lots of issues there for us to unpick and take forward in various ways, either through campaigning, joint work, collaborations, partnerships with different organizations, how we retain that space and work. Thank you for that. I would like to move us on and invite Sharmin Shahjahan, our Deputy Director at Voice4Change, to speak to some of our achievements and impact, looking back at 2023-24 and speaking about some of our current work as well. So Sharmin, over to you.
Thanks, Nina. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being with us and joining our AGM. First, I'd like to thank all of our partner organizations and funders who are enabling us to meet our vision to build a stronger and more inclusive civil society. And as Voice4Change England is a national advocate for the BME VCSE sector, we are every day trying to do so. And Kunle is working at policy level very much strategically. So, you've heard Kunle, how he was involved in the developing the covenant that was launched last week. So, Voice4Change England, we have 4 main work streams: infrastructure and development, policy and research, systems change and advocacy, partnership working. And we could not have done our work without the support and dedication of our team members in communications and marketing, membership and finance. So, we are the kind of front facing, but they are behind the scenes working very hard to keep us going and promoting our work and sustaining our work. So Nina touched on Catalyst program. We have 2 programs under Catalyst, Catalyst London and Catalyst Regions. Catalyst London is funded by City Bridge Foundation and Regions funded by National Lottery Community Fund. So far, as you can see, we have, we are supporting 101 BME organizations in the VCSE sector with bespoke one-to-one consultancy. And these are in-depth support that we're providing. And these are a lot of organizations. And we've held so far 222 individual consultancy sessions, delivered 50 workshops under this program alone. And you can see the numbers of attendees, 775 attendees. And we have lots of workshop attendees from different organizations, more organizations. So you can see there are more organizations attending, 215 organizations attending our workshops. And this is just to show our impact in terms of, after we collect, surveys and impact, just to see how our work is and how can we improve our work. 97% agreed after the one-to-one support that the support provided has helped them to address their organization's needs. Also, 93% stated that they had gained new knowledge and insights, and 90% of organizations rated the experience of working with Voice4Change England as very good or excellent. These are some of the quotes from the organizations that we have supported on a one-to-one basis. And these are very heartwarming and insightful because that shows our impact directly when we get feedback. And that's why whenever we have workshops, we collect your feedback. Whenever we're supporting on a one-to-one level, we are keen to know our feedback so we can deliver better services to you. So this one is saying very supporting and assisting us to meet our goals in developing our first ever business plan. Assisted me to complete an application for lottery funding reaching communities. They reviewed my application and gave great feedback and support. Another organization said, gave us very tailored and practical advice, exactly what we were looking for. And it carries on. So this one is one of our, and the whole credit goes to infrastructure and development officers in my team. They have supported these organizations and hence the impact is, here today. Listened and understood my needs and has been very helpful in providing advice, resources, and connecting me with X, who has been great supporting me in marketing, with marketing and communications. Really value the help Voice4Change England has given me so far. Another one provided support in relation to our complaints policy. She gave positive feedback, which helped to enhance policy, organizational policy. So you can see just reading this, how impactful our infrastructure and development support has been for the BME VCSE sector. Another organization said, I have had an exceptional experience working with Voice4Change England. From the outset, their team has been incredibly supportive, responsive, and professional. X, an ID officer in particular, has been, I can hear some background noises. Please kindly unmute yourself. Thank you. An ID officer in particular has been an invaluable resource. Her thoughtful guidance, thorough insights, and willingness to engage deeply with our project have made a huge difference. The commitment to ensuring our success and providing clear, constructive feedback has been outstanding. I'm truly grateful for the support we have received throughout this process and would highly recommend working with Voice4Change England. And this is what keeps us going. This is what motivates us to carry on. And our four infrastructure and development officers work tirelessly to support organizations. So I'm very thankful and grateful for their work. Very hardworking, and that will hopefully will continue in the future as well. Our part of our infrastructure offer is also to distribute grants. So in partnership with Comic Relief, Voice4Change England awarded 283,000 in grant funding to 7 organizations across the 5 regions in England as part of our Race Equality and Infrastructure Flexible Fund. This funding is enabling them to provide and improve infrastructure provision at a local level, supporting BME VCC sector organizations to develop and address race inequality effectively. So these are long quotes, but this is from one of our grantee, and all of our grantees, 7 grantees, are actually we formed a strategic partnership with them. So the grant has made vital in strengthening our capacity as a BME organization, community organization. It has enabled us to improve our internal systems by procuring new laptops, offer more targeted support to local BME groups, and develop new partnerships that extend our reach. And it carries on how the funding has supported them. This is from Black Minority Ethnic Community Partnership. Another partner, TREC, stands for the Race Equality Centre. They've said that this support enabled us to access vital expertise to tackle the unique challenges faced by racially minoritized VCSE organizations. It is also helping us build capacity, strengthen sustainability, and support long-term growth. And these are some of the tangible changes the targeted funding can do. And that's why we are always advocating on behalf of our members, on behalf of our grantees, to continue sustainable funding, to give core funding. Another grantee and a strategic partner, Cambridge Ethnic Community Forum, have mentioned that being funded by Voice4Change England is making a significant difference to our capacity to work with community groups and spend the time with them that they want and need. So clearly, hopefully by our next AGM, we will have some video and introduce these grantees after they will be finishing their a year-long funding, so we would see tangible outcomes. So I look forward to our next year's AGM. This was in 2023. We worked in partnership with Sport England and awarded 55,000 additional grant funding to 25 BME organizations from the Together Fund. And this enabled them to continue provision of sport and physical activities in their local communities, supporting over 3,100 beneficiaries. And this is particularly important, as Kunle mentioned, that we came out of post-pandemic and we hit an economic downfall because we had cost of living crisis that impacted on most of us. We also delivered introductory workshops such as governance, digital fundraising, and strategic planning in that time. And we had 169 attendees just in those workshops, 11 workshops. And as you can see, the quotes from the quotes, for example, I've been going through a really tough time and I can't thank you enough for including me in the classes. I've always wanted to learn to swim, but was always told girls don't need to know that. I felt so happy and strong, it made me feel like I can do anything. Another one, it was nice to be involved in this program as I could communicate with someone in my own, in my language and have made new friends. I've learned a lot of things about fitness, health, and it's improved my confidence. I've joined the FC club as a result and want play in local leagues. So these are tangible changes and, impacting on people's life positively throughout these funds and grants. Voice4Change England, in partnership with School for Social Entrepreneurs and Social Enterprise, we have funded by the DCMS. We held a series of webinars to increase VCSC, BME VCSC public sector procurement, because our sector is historically underfunded, as you know, but access to the government contracts, either local or kind of local central government, it's low, and people were not very aware that they could actually secure government contracts. So we held 6 webinars, and we had huge response. We had 259 attendees, and again, the quotes just show the feedback, how impactful it was. One of them is saying it was useful to have some background information followed by speakers' experiences and advice. And in Voice4Change England, we promote lived experience, because even at policy level, we advocate for that, because lived experience, and we have, experts by lived experience. It's really, really powerful when you hear them, how, they have overcome obstacles as a social entrepreneur with nothing they started, and then, scaling up. So those lived experiences are really important. Brilliant webinar, great to be able to ask questions to knowledgeable experts. The speakers knew and explained like they spoke to novices, which I am. And it goes on, because we also gave out video as a reference from the webinar to the attendees, so they can look back and for references. So in a nutshell, all I want to say is that, I'm going to move, I can't even move my screen now. You can see the number. This is, total number of, attendees, and we have huge numbers of attendees for throughout those years. And I joined Voice4Change England in March 2022, and since then, I'm happy to say that we have delivered, 120 sessions online and in person, and we've got so many attendees attending it. And these are all tailor-made, were kind of capacity building workshops. Nina talked about our GLA-funded campaign. This third phase, we were successful in the first 2 phases when we were raising awareness about voter ID. The third phase was beyond elections. So we called it Your Voice, Your Democracy, where we promoted our democratic rights, but as well as our civic rights. We often have multiple hats on in our lives. So the objectives of this campaign was to empower Londoners and civil society with political literacy knowledge and tools to enhance civic and democratic participation, explore barriers to participation, and increase their understanding, and strengthen the capacity of civil society organizations to support civic and democratic participation. And we did that by holding workshops, online and in-person workshops, as well as outreaching out in the community with giving out flyers. And we've done a great job on our social media campaigns. Just wanted to kind of give you a flavor for the third phase. We've reached this number, 18,423 underrepresented Black and minorities and disadvantaged individuals in London. So that is a huge number, a combination of, social media, outreach in person, and as well as online, but also through newspaper adverts and flyers. So we targeted our campaign for specific groups. For example, for the Orthodox Jewish community in London, they have, a newsletter that goes free to 6,000 households in London. And we have done newspaper campaigns as well, because they don't have internet and TV in their house. So we reached out through the newsletter. These are some of the impact from the GLA campaign, people who attended our workshops, a political literacy workshop. So for example, one here is saying, today it has made me realize how important it is to get involved in voting, on how voting is very important and how my voice is very important when it comes to voting. And I think one takeaway from today was to get the youth involved, because they have not been involved in voting and democracy. This conversation should continue, because we need to let people know how important it is and how important the voices are. Another student from St. Mary's University, when we delivered a session during the Refugee Week, mentioned, I specifically appreciated the democratic engagement seminar as part of Gen Z. I think we hear a lot of discussion about what's the point of voting, why be engaged, but it's always a privilege hearing reminders about the beneficial to be part of it, and that we do have power to make changes. And again, talking about systems change, which I'll be talking very soon. As Nina already mentioned, that we work on policy level as well. Home Truths too, we're working in partnership with Akiwumi, and we looked at in that research, and our policy and influence officer worked very closely to develop an anti-racism companion journal. And Home Truths to focus on policies in the civil society to create an anti-racist future. We all know that organizational values and policies form the DNA of an organization's, kind of roadmap, values, strategies, and priorities. And they're powerful tools to embed race equity frameworks that actively humanize the workforce. So when it's done well, this can drive equitable change across the employee's life cycle, from recruitment and retention to retirement. So this anti-racism companion journal offers a reflective space, how you might ignite meaningful change. It's an open source, so we've given the QR code here. It's free to view and download and share. So if you want to access it, you can just scan the QR code here. And we are very lucky. We have our environment strategy officer who worked very hard and developed this year. We launched our Voice4Change England environmental strategy, where climate meets race. And this is, we are exploring climate justice through the lens of anti-racism and surveying the BME VCSE sector to understand the barriers. And we'll be holding a series of workshops, climate cafes, nature-based activities, and climate roundtables. So watch the space, it's coming. And as I mentioned earlier, that Voice4Change England's communication and marketing team are top notch. Without them, we could not, carry on and do our work effectively. So thanks to our comms and marketing team. As you can see, our Instagram and LinkedIn followers and accounts reached and the number of impressions. So we are very happy to have a very good comms team and a very kind of optimal level working. So really, really grateful for all of our comms team support for our work. And again, on X, TikTok, and blogs. So you can see a lot of blogs we've written, and we will continue doing that. And we have a culture now, when we do an event, we do a post-event blog. Now, this is what I wanted to talk about, systems change and policy advocacy program that we have. It's a long program, 10-year-old program. And we are focusing on 4 topics: housing, environment, health, and education. And we want to explore how we can see all of these inequalities through anti-racism lenses. We know the systems are broken. We know, we have a voice, and collaboratively how we can all join our voices and leverage system change. But it needs to happen at a kind of a small level first, and then we're doing this in London, hoping we can roll out, dependent on future funding from, funding for us at London. But this is a 10-year program. We are very, very excited, and you'll be notified of its official launch. We are hoping to have it in an in-person event in London in September. So the objective is to develop and promote Voice4Change England race equality measures and strategies to influence systemic reforms and facilitate collaboration, strategic collaboration between BME VCC organizations and stakeholders, and identifying the root causes of race inequality in target sectors that I already talked about. But through research and community engagement, Kunle talked about in one of the covenant bullet point is about data, important it's really important what data we collect and what is being presented, who is building the narrative. So we need to have a united front, all the race equality organizations to come together, have a united front to leverage that voice. And we are hoping to co-produce policy recommendations and advocacy tools to drive system change. And also build, you heard about, part of our GLA campaigns on political literacy. We want to embed that as part of our community resilience building, because, at local level, if people are involved in their wider civic life, we can make change. Who is holding the power? Who can, how can somebody get engaged locally in the decision-making forums? And political literacy, is important for that, because politics impact all aspects of our life, whether we like it or not. But we are also looking at, when we are supporting an organization on a one-to-one level, looking at needs assessment, but we're also looking at their assets, the strengths an organization have. And using asset-based community development also helps us to identify the assets as well as the deficit. So we're not just coming from a deficit angle, we're coming from strengthening and building on the strength that organizations in the sector have. So in the some of the short-term outcomes is to build collaboration and trust with between the BME VCSE as well as the system stakeholders. We can't do this alone. We need system stakeholders as champions who will recognize, understand the pressing needs to evolve and make those system changes. And we always want Voice4Change England. We are an advocate for BME VCSE sector. We always want our sector to be better resourced. And whichever forums we're going, we always advocate on your behalf, on our members' behalf. And we also want to raise the underlying causes of racial and systemic inequalities. We see the symptoms, we see the tip of an iceberg, but what are the entrenched and embedded systemic, structural, and racial, discrimination that happens? What are those barriers? We need to address those. And we can't do that without our community. So we will identify, and co-design solutions to problems together. And therefore, we want BME leaders to come forward and, support us in our work. We'll be forming a stakeholder reference group for Horizons London programme. So there will be some polls. And if you're already involved in health, housing, education, and environment, please do, use that poll to show your interest. We are very, very fortunate where Race Meets Climate is a new project funded by Esme Fairbairn for 3 years. And year one, we'll be running a series of workshops, building the groundwork for engagement. And these are some of the topics: climate justice is racial justice, climate and health, community climate action, the right to land, climate work is care work. In year two, we'll be focusing on climate justice in practice. And in year three, we'll be taking the shared learning forward through collaborative efforts. So watch the space. Lots of, I feel energized, lots of new and upcoming work that we'll be reporting next year. We are also working with School for Social Entrepreneurs on match trading or trading for good, and funding. What happened in year one is a 3-year program. We're having, upskilling our grants team, and they have learned how to do the match trading, all the assessments now, and we'll be distributing, and doing the assessments towards the end of this year. It's really good. This is a new product that we've got in. Another one, we are working in partnership with Key Fund, our Energy Resilience Fund. This is an initiative to empower community and social enterprises to retrofit energy-saving technology on community buildings and aiming to stabilize or reduce energy costs. So this information is on our website, and you can scan this QR code as well to get more information, and you can email us. The email address is there. And, this will be available online after this. We are recording this session, so you can always reach us at our inquiries at voice4change-england.co.uk email address if you're interested. On our website, if you could visit our website, you'll see more of this information. And this AGM, I'm hoping on a few of our members. If not, why not? It's free. There's no catch. So I would, if you're new or if you're not a member yet, I would request you all to become a member. It is free. There's no catch. And you'll get lots of exclusive benefits in terms of priority bookings, sector insights, discounts, and a monthly newsletter in your email inbox with lots of information about different sorts of funding and sector insights. This is just to give you a snapshot of our membership. We've cleaned up our databases, lots of duplicates got rid of, but as you can see, we have nearly 545 members across the 9 regions in England, and London is the heaviest. You can see the green. So we will be working effortlessly with our strategic partners outside of London to increase our membership in the regions. So we can't do that alone. So those of you on this call who are from outside London, please do become a member if you're not a member, and also encourage other organizations and individuals to become a member. And we will be launching the first poll. Diti, are you going to, I can't see the chat, so you'll have to tell me when you've launched the first poll. This is about our Horizons London program, just to get an idea about who on this call are engaged with any of those topics: health, housing, education, and environment. And if any of you are interested, then please, if you're interested to get involved in this program, please, give your details. And there's going to be an expression of interest. But we just want to know how many of you are involved in any of those 4 topics. Didi, please let me know to move to if you've completed the first poll.
There seems to be a technical difficulty, sorry.
Shall I stop while you sort that out? Shall I move on to Nina for our speakers while you do that?
Yes, that might be a good idea.
Okay, right. So Nina, over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Charmin. That was a fantastic walk through some of our past achievements, but also bringing us into our current kind of strands of work, which is really exciting. And like Charmin said, colleagues on this call this evening, if you haven't already joined Voice4Change England as a member, please do so now and contact our team, and we will pick up your details and be in touch. This brings me, I think, one of the key things we do wish to learn from, before I invite our keynote speaker, one of the things we do want colleagues to do is respond to the poll, because it gives vital information about setting our priorities and understanding what our membership needs. And it kind of fills us with all of the information we require to take things forward. So thanks in advance for engaging with that when Diti Priya is able to set that up after our keynote speaker. So it's with great pleasure I now would like to invite Carol Akiwumi, MBE, who is the CEO and founder of the AVOCADO Foundation. Carol is a highly accomplished serial entrepreneur, consultant, trainer, and inspirational speaker with a strong commitment to stewardship and justice. She's passionate about equipping individuals and organizations with the tools to unlock their potential, particularly in financial education, capacity building, and resource mobilization. As the founder and CEO of the AVOCADO Foundation, formerly called Money for You, Carol leads an organization dedicated to empowering underrepresented communities through financial education, entrepreneurship training, and capacity building initiatives worldwide. Carol, a warm welcome to you on behalf of Voice4Change, and thank you for speaking with us today and joining us for our AGM. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Carol. Thank you.
Brilliant. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much. That was a really, really kind introduction. And I think I need to say thank you to my EA because she put that together. Made me look very impressive indeed. But in any case, it's such a pleasure to be with you all today. Thank you, Kunle and Voice4Change England, for inviting me. It's always an honor to be in the company of those who refuse to stay silent, sit still, or settle for crumbs. And I love the theme of your AGM, breaking barriers and building futures. When I saw it, I thought, yes, that's exactly what we're about. Now, I was going to set myself an alarm to stay within the 10-minute mark so you get to ask questions. So can I encourage you, if you do have any questions, to put them in the chat so I can take them as soon as I'm done. But I realized that will probably cause a random noise interruption. So here's my first of two small asks. At the 8-minute mark, just give me a virtual eyebrow raise, everybody. Yeah, I should at least spot one. Okay, so I'm crowdsourcing the timekeeping now. If I see any virtual eyebrows, I know I need to start wrapping up quickly. So I'll be looking at your faces. And I believe a collective act like this, will do the trick. My second ask, if anything I say this evening resonates with you, let's not let it end here. Drop a message in the chat, or better yet, get in touch after this AGM. Get in touch with Voice4Change England. Get in touch with me. I'm on LinkedIn, everywhere at Amiki Carroll. Let's build together. We're all here today because we believe change happens in community. Now, let's start with breaking barriers. I probably don't need to tell this audience what barriers are, what kind of barriers we're talking about, but indulge me. I'd like to name some of them, at least the biggest ones in my mind anyway. I think about systemic inequality. And that's not just a phrase we use in funding applications. And believe me, I've written my fair share of funding applications. But it's the air that we breathe. It's the walls we climb every single day. Consider this. Only 2.1% of UK charity sector leadership roles are held by Black professionals. I know because I led a campaign years ago when I sat on the board of the Chartered Institute of Fundraising, and Kunle was also part of the Change Collective, trying to get more people, particularly fundraisers, into the sector. Meanwhile, we know that Black and other ethnically diverse communities make up at least 14% of the population. But if you thought that was bad, consider this. Only 0.25% approximately of UK foundation grant funding goes to Black and global majority-led organizations. That's less than 0.25%. And yet we're still asked to scale up very often before being trusted with big funds and core funding. Imagine being asked to run before being given shoes. I mean, in fairness, things are changing with a few funders. But when you think that they don't even make up 1% of the nearly 9,000 grant makers in this country, you realize we have a long way to go. And we're often told to partner with larger organizations, and we know what that means. Too often, it means doing the work while they collect the check. In fairness, again, not all organizations are like that. But too many people have bad experiences and continue to, because we run the AVOCADO Hub with over 800 social impact organizations as members, and we hear these stories all the time. Let's be clear, these barriers aren't new. What's new for me, though, certainly over the last decade or so, is how much time and effort is spent talking about fixing these barriers without the commensurate long-term investment that real change requires. Because it does need money to change things. Nothing serious ever really moves until investment is put behind it. At the AVOCADO Foundation, our work centers on economic justice, especially through financial literacy and enterprise. We believe that when people understand money, when they manage it well, and use it to build income-generating opportunities, they can transform. They can transform not just their lives, but entire communities. That was another alarm. But let me keep it real. Enterprise isn't glamorous. It's messy. It's risky. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I know. It takes a lot more than a Canva pitch deck and a good Instagram quote. And so even though we've supported BME-led nonprofits, and when we say BME, we mean Black, Asian, multi-ethnic, and refugee-led nonprofits in London, across the UK, often working with the most marginalized. We've also supported young people from underserved communities and entrepreneurs, many of whom are operating in hostile environments, sometimes even without basic infrastructure so they can engage in the global economy. We don't do this by telling people what to do. We do it by walking alongside them, respecting their cultural differences, and co-creating interventions that actually work. And I want to take a moment to acknowledge our work with Voice4Change England. You know, we've done a few things together, and even being able to contribute on a special evening like this for me is fantastic. Kunle supports what we do, has done so over the years, and for me, that means so much. One thing I've learned is this: collaboration works best when everyone brings their superpower to the table. We don't all need to do everything. We just need to know what we do well and to do it brilliantly. That's why we continue to support multi-partner bids, some with Voice4Change England, that enable us to reach more young people, more entrepreneurs, more BME-led social impact organizations, so that we can co-create solutions and build something bigger than any one group could do alone. We need to specialize without silos, though, collaborate without codependence, because that is the ultimate goal. So what does building futures really mean? To me, it means moving from reaction to reimagination. It means not just surviving hostile systems, but redesigning them. It also means showing up in spaces that weren't built for us and remaking them for the next generation. It also means redefining success. Because let's be honest, there's a pressure in this sector to perform resilience like it's a talent show. If I had £1 for every time somebody said to me, "Oh, we're amazed at what you've been able to achieve with so little," I'd be able to pay my hard-working team properly. We're not magical. We are, however, strategic. And for that, we deserve real investments collectively. So building futures, from my perspective, means continuing to advocate for unrestricted, equitable, multi-year funding. It means, conversely, saying no to restrictive grants that don't align with your mission. But most importantly, it means supporting each other, because alone we're one drop, but together we're a mighty ocean. There's so much we can do when we band together, as my children like to call it. I was once in a meeting where someone said, "We're committed to equity. We just don't have a budget for it this year." And in my mind, I thought, isn't that like saying I'm committed to eating, but I'm just not sure I'll be using my mouth this month? But I just smiled, because what do? It was somebody who we hoped would give us a large investment. They did, maybe because I didn't say what I was really thinking. But if we're serious about breaking barriers and building futures, there are 3 things I think we need to commit to, individually and collectively. The first is radical solidarity, not competition, not tokenism, real solidarity that's rooted in shared values and equity, not optics. We also need to commit to intentional investment. And that goes both ways. Think about yourselves, your organizations as investments. Let's stop funding trauma and start funding transformation. Let's shift the narrative from saving communities to resourcing leadership that already exists. And third, but by no means least, we need to dream louder. Yes, speak up, even when, as Kunle said, the issues are contentious. Because what would our funding bids look like if they were bold enough to include an exit strategy? After all, we should be committed to solving problems, not just being in the business of being in the business. Let's stop scrambling for seats at the table. Let's build our own. And while we're at it, we need to bring our own jollof, you know? And so in closing, I want to finish with something my father used to say. that I've never forgotten. Just as we were growing up, he always used to say, first things first, second things never. Let me say that again. First things first, second things never. That's how we must approach this work. Equity is not an afterthought. Inclusion is not a line item. Justice is not a luxury. These are first things. And if we don't prioritize them, we risk losing the very future that we say we're building. So to everyone here, let's keep breaking those barriers. Let's keep building those futures, and let's keep putting first things, well, first. Thank you. And may we go far together.
Certainly, Carol. And absolutely, what a thought-provoking and a passionate address to our gathering this evening. And I can't thank you enough. There are so many things that chime with our goals, with our purpose, with our mission. So a deep thanks to you for being with us here this evening and for inspiring us, not least with a quote from your father. So I think that's really well received. Thank you very much. Moving us on, I have the pleasure actually of inviting Asher Craig, and like my colleague Ela said earlier, it's our great pleasure being one of our former trustees at Voice4Change England, Asher Craig, who's currently CEO of the Pathway Fund, also recently was the Deputy Mayor of Bristol. A warm welcome to you, Asher. You've been a dedicated, over 30 years driving social change, advocating for Black, minoritized and underrepresented communities, both regionally and nationally. At Bristol City Council, you have held portfolios in children and education, equalities, neighborhoods, communities, all the key things that policy areas that we care for. And you have also driven forward a more racially equitable food system in Bristol, achieving Gold Sustainable Food City status. The city's first Citizens Assembly and its Community Resilience Fund. And you are here at this AGM to speak to us about some of the things, your achievements, but also to drive some of this discussion forward. So Asher, over to you.
Thank you so much, Chair. And can I just say it's how do I follow Carol? How do I follow that? Really and truly. That was absolutely brilliant. It's going to make my contribution really boring because I'm here to kind of give you an overview of what's been going on with us at the Pathway Fund and kind of set out our vision. And also let you know, introduce to you what our mission is and what lies ahead for us over the coming months and years. And as we heard before, there is going to be a Q&A session at the end, so please be ready with any questions or any points of clarification that you would like. Next slide, please. So, who is the Pathways Fund? Well, our story begins around 2022, but actually maybe even before that. But we were founded in 2022 in order to catalyse opportunities for Black and ethnic minoritized communities across the UK through impact investment. We intend to raise between 65 to £100 million endowment fund, responding to the Adibawali Commission's recommendations on the need for Black-led social investment wholesaler fund to be established in the UK. And that fund is actually the Pathway Fund. We exist because the current system has failed to serve our communities. We've been persistently underinvested in, we lack access to finance, and we are excluded from the decision-making tables, not by accident, but by design. And our role is to disrupt and rebuild that system. We do that through 4 interconnected roles. As a funder and an investor, providing tailored capital where it's most needed. As a knowledge builder, creating the data and case for racial equity in finance, as a convener and influencer. So we're there to bridge communities, policymakers, and the financial sector. And as a visionary, it's important that we shift the narratives and shape a more just and financial future. We're proudly governed by a Black-led board, led by Lord Hastings of Scarisbrick, and includes our 3 founder members, which includes Kunle, as well as those with lived and professional experience at its core. And we're structured as a non-profit, ensuring all the benefit goes back to the communities that we serve. Next slide, please. So let me talk to you a little bit about some of our programs and what we've been up to since we launched. We've been actually very busy trying to prove that a new model is possible, even before we actually had the announcement of formal government fundings through dormant assets. So far as an organisation, and again, I give thanks to Voice4Change England, who I suppose cocooned us and incubated us until we got to a stage where we could fly the nest, which we have done. And we've raised nearly 1.9 million in philanthropic support to design and test a series of impactful programs. One of those programs is our enterprise development pilot, which supported 12 Black and minoritized-led organizations with grants and capacity building. Already, 3 of those organizations have secured follow-on investment in excess of £300,000. We launched our fund manager incubator, which backed 3 emerging Black fund managers, notably Future Impact Ventures, Blast, and also Foundervine. And I understand, though I can't give you all of that information, that they have all gone on to secure multi-million-pound investment towards the funds that they are developing. So that is a result. And we also delivered the cost of living programme, which was funded from £1.2 million from a previous dormant asset allocation. That has supported 30 Black-led organisations addressing urgent needs in their communities through a range of blended grants and finance. And we're showing that through those programmes, that when you trust Black-led leaders with resources, they deliver and they build power in the process. Next slide, please. So I'm going to just talk to you a little bit about dormant assets because, as you know, last month, the government announced its long-awaited dormant asset strategy. And we're really proud to say that Pathways Fund has secured £12 million as part of that. I want to publicly acknowledge the role that Kunle and Voice4Change England, alongside Bonnie Chu and Stephen Bediako, have played by working tirelessly behind the scenes and in front of the scenes to persuade not only the social impact investment sector, but also government to support the establishment of a Black-led wholesaler. And again, thank you again for hosting Pathway Funds until we transitioned into our own separate entity. But what is a wholesaler? And I thought I'd use this as an opportunity to kind of describe. It's not a term that I actually really like, but it's baked into government legislation. So social investment wholesalers, we help to move capital into the social investment market to support charities and social enterprises addressing social challenges. We will typically invest indirectly via funds and intermediary organizations. And we also will use, my intention is to use that 12 million to attract additional co-investment and to help to strengthen the overall ecosystem. And beyond funding, as wholesalers, we also act as market builders. So again, Pathway will be working to grow and improve the social investment landscape for Black and minoritized communities and social enterprises. And that includes developing new financial products that meets our needs, influencing policy, and we're doing a lot of that at this moment in time. We are supporting, we will again use our investment to support organizations to raise further investment for themselves. And we want to build the infrastructure like networks and provide the tools that are required to really help to strengthen those organizations and get them ready to receive onward investment. In the UK, there are 3 wholesalers. We're funded, all of us funded partly by dormant assets. And I want to make it fundamentally clear, we are the new kid on the block. The biggest of the wholesalers is obviously Better Society Capital. They've had in excess of, I think, £600 million worth of dormant assets, and they've been around for around 15 years now. You then have Access, who again were recipients of a kind of endowment of around £200 million. And then you have Pathway, who the money didn't drop in our lap. Okay, we had to make the case and we had to fight for this allocation that we currently have. And I'm saying I am grateful, but it's only the tip of the iceberg. But again, I'm grateful to Kunle and the co-founders, and also to some of the allies, some of our allies in the social impact investment world. So the £12 million, though, is restricted. It's there to support asset-locked charities and social enterprise, and we plan to deploy it over the next 4 years through trusted intermediaries that are embedded in their local communities. And I'll go on to explain a little bit more about what our intention is as we begin the regional rollout of the dormant asset funding. Next slide, please. So in terms of our endowment ambitions, we're really not limited. I think I've always continuously remind everybody, we don't just exist to deliver funding through dormant asset funding. We have bigger ambitions, and those ambitions include raising in excess of £50 million in philanthropic capital. This is really, for me, about, and for Pathway, about investing in racial equity at scale across public and private markets, and really backing for-profit and non-profit organizations in our communities that create community wealth. Our endowment will generate long-term income to fund our mission sustainably. It will provide patient, risk-tolerant capital that others can follow. We plan to support a kind of spend-down model over a number of years, ensuring that there are real change across generations. And just in the remainder of 2025, we're also going to be focusing on donor engagement, piloting new investment structures, and expanding our fund manager incubator, where we launched our Fund Manager 2 program as a pipeline for diverse capital fund managers. Our model has been designed to raise capital that meets the needs of our communities here in the UK, as well as really solve the challenge for asset holders who want to channel their capital into our communities. And based on our understanding of demand, we believe that the greatest need is for blended finance and grants to prepare BME-led enterprises to take on social investment, address historical underinvestment, and also be flexible and provide financial products that meet communities where they are, working with BME-led intermediaries who are embedded in the communities, as I've said, that they are seeking to serve. Next slide, please. So for me, at the heart of Pathway's model, you heard I was the deputy mayor of Bristol, and one of the things I'm really proud of during the 8 years that I was a politician and helping to lead the city is that we are hot on collaboration and partnership. Partnership and collaboration go hand in hand with me, and that's my middle name. So I've brought that same approach to Pathway, and I'm keen to collaborate. We're a bridge, we're not a silo. And this principle for me is absolutely central to how we are going to work going forward. Pathway Fund was never designed to stand apart, but we need to connect, we need to convene, and we need to co-create. So for me, it's really important to build strategic alliances with Black and ethnic minority-led organizations operating in the social impact space. These are people and organizations, some of you are in this room today, rooted in community experience, and it's your insight that has to guide where funding goes and how it's going to be delivered. And over the past few months, we've taken that commitment on the road. I've just completed a 10-stop national roadshow, partnering with leading organizations in every region, including Black Southwest Network in Bristol. We've had HIMA in Nottingham, the Birmingham Black Business Collective, and BLAST in Liverpool. But our collaboration doesn't stop there. We're working closely with other sector leaders, which includes Voice4Change England, Black Equity Organisation, Rooted Finance, Runnymede Trust, and many more, to really align on our strategy and push for real systemic change. And when I talk about change, we don't just mean shifting internal practices. I mean taking the voices and priorities of our communities to where it matters, to the social investment sector, to Parliament, and also to the press. And our role is to open doors, shift power, and make racial equity a central permanent feature of UK finance. We're not a side project. I'm not taking that any longer. So I fundamentally believe we need to grow the pie and not compete over crumbs. You know, I am not in competition with anybody. We need to be working together. So whether that's working with mainstream social investors, with government, with philanthropists, and with movement builders, we need to co-create a new financial ecosystem that actually works for our communities, and one that actually centers those of us who've been excluded. That's the model, that's the movement, and that's what Pathway was built to do. So finally, final slide. I need to let you know what we're going to be up to over the next few months. So in the autumn of 2025, will mark a major milestone. We will officially launch the Pathway Fund strategy, which will set out how we plan to deploy the dormant assets and also our investment strategy for the endowment. We're also going to publish our impact reports on the fund manager incubator pilot. As I said before, we are now currently recruiting to the fund manager incubator 2. And so if any of you are interested in thinking about setting up your own funds, then do go to our website, check it out, and put in an application if you want to be considered. We'll also have an impact report for our cost of living program and also the enterprise development program. And I think you'll find that quite eye-opening. It will give everybody insights into why Pathway is going to invest in the way that that I've set out. We're going to approach rollout in a couple of phases. We will start the process of opening up tenders to invite intermediary, ideally Black and minoritized-led intermediary organizations, whether that's individual organizations and or pilot or partnerships. Deployment of funding will begin once we've gone through that tendering process, and we're interested in co-deployment models that can be piloted in selected regions. Meanwhile, we're also going to support activities across other parts of the country to lay critical kind of foundations for the future. And then around about wave 2, 18 months to 2 years, we will take the learning from wave 1 and the infrastructure progress that has been made during this time, and we'll further expand deployment of our investment in regions that have demonstrated capacity and investment readiness. We'll focus on developing sustainable, long-term intermediary ecosystem and investment pipeline. And at the same time, as I said, we will roll out the 12 million, disperse grants and blended finance, accelerate the growth of our 50 million plus endowment, deepen engagement with donors and foundations, and really grow the next generation of diverse fund managers, people who reflect the communities we serve and lead this change from within. Pathway Fund isn't just a capital deployment vehicle. I'm building a movement for justice, dignity, and economic liberation. So I invite you as partners, as funders, as believers, to really join us in reshaping who gets to imagine, own, and invest in our future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Asha, that was absolutely fantastic, walking us through, Pathway Fund, its origins, development, why, how, when. I think these are really important issues. And I was deliberately waiting for you to start and, with your presentation, because there are great synergies with both yours as well as Carol's, talk, which really speaks to, the why and how of breaking barriers and building bridges. So I'd really like to now invite colleagues to, ask questions. I see some hands already, first from Kunle and then from Charmin. I believe there are some other announcements in the background, perhaps, but I did see a poll rise up in the background previously. But, it's time for Q&A. And if we can have questions, we can kind of feed through the chat function as well, but also inviting colleagues to unmute themselves. But first to Kunle and then to Charmin.
I have no question, but just to really commend Asha and the team at Pathway. I know some of them are on the call as well, but she's absolutely right. When myself, Stephen, and Bonnie got together to think this through, you can trace a link back to a report called Bridging the Gap, where we interviewed 100 BME organizations and asked them about their experience of grant funding. And what came out of that report was interesting, but there was a very explicit demand that Voice4Change investigate the area of social investment as one of the options that people would consider outside of grant funding. And to see where you are now, Asha and the team, it's almost unbelievable. So I know that you're going to do great things. So I just wanted to actually say that to you, that we're right behind you. And even though you're going to be separated from us fairly soon, we'll still be there. Okay?
The child can never leave the mother, even if you brought the umbilical cord.
Thank you, Kunle, and thank you, Asha. Can I invite Charmin?
Yes, Asha and Carol, amazing, inspiring speech. So thank you very much. I just want to say, because we missed the polls section, that's where you can see polls on your screen. So if you can kindly, fill it and quickly have this, and we can move on to the Q&A. So once the poll is launched, if you just click, and then we can move to the next one. Sarah, is it? Thank you.
Could I, as much as you said that, Shami, could I just say something before we do that, though? Is that all right?
Sure. Okay.
Is that all right, Nina?
Absolutely, Carl. Thank you.
So, to be honest, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, Charmin. One of the downsides of doing an event like this virtually is that we can't give a rousing round of applause for our presenters. And so here's a very, very loud, rousing applause for you, Asha, and for you, Carol. Those were extremely inspiring and informative presentations. Thank you so much. And I'm doing that, I'm taking advantage of the opportunity because that's my chair. She was going to do that anyway, but I just couldn't contain myself, to be honest. And Charmin and team, given that those presentations and the importance of economic equity. We haven't got enterprise or economic in there as a poll option. Is that coming somewhere else? Because that is what really, some of us are invested in, and clearly the last two presentations.
So, Carl, this is just to get an idea about, we are looking for some stakeholders for our Horizons London program. And the topics are health, education, housing, and environment. So we just want to know who is involved in any of those topics, whether they are and they're interested to engage with us. And then there will be a third poll, I think, about the covenant. But just, I think in terms of the economic, that is an underlying, cause in terms of deprivation. So in terms of, we're working, I know my colleague Chris Sybil, she's working on ethnicity pay gap. So that's something that we're working and supporting that campaign, because that is also, that is one of the underlying causes of ethnicity pay gap and all the deprivation, and how, health is linked with housing, environment, and education. So they're all interlinked. So we'll address that because deprivation, is an underlying one of the factors that kind of is entrenched, and the system kind of keeps us there.
Sorry, Sharvin.
In circle. So
this relates to a specific piece of work. Is that what you're saying then? Is that the poll?
This polls are for Horizons London program.
But
we're looking into economic deprivation and all of that as underlying causes. So that hasn't missed our horizon, like our radar.
I'll be connected with Asha. I'll be connected with Asha and Carol directly on economic stuff. So thank you anyway.
So can I just say, like I said before, collaboration and partnership is my middle name, so I won't say, everybody thinks I'm from country because I'm from Bristol and I was living in this bubble named Bristol. But I have actually been quite surprised at the lack of partnership working amongst our people. I did a speech last week actually where, I was asked, actually, what do you want to talk about? And I said, something, I don't even want to talk about the usual kind of racism in the system. I need to talk to us. I need to talk to us as Black-led organizations, because something, we need to do better ourselves, because as I keep saying, I am not in competition. Let me tell you, there is too much resource and funding out there for us to be squabbling over the little scraps. Because I'm sitting in government meetings and they're talking about hundreds of millions of pounds. And when I'm talking to them, I'm talking about tens of millions and hundreds of billions to come into our sector. But I don't want to be the only one who's sitting in those rooms. So that's why I'm saying I'm here to convene, whether people like it or not. When I'm talking, or any of us are talking, we are talking from a place of strength, because I know I've got the backative of all of these Black-led organizations across the country, demanding change, demanding more access to resources, and what needs to happen with the system and the policy change. So I'm at the beginning of even great policy change at this moment in time. So over the next few months, there are going to be a wave of policy announcements that the Labour government is going to be making around kind of social impact investment. You heard about the outcomes, better outcomes for Futures Fund that they announced 500 million. British Business Bank has just announced 450 million pounds as well. There's more money coming, trust me. And so I want to be in a position where I'm opening everybody's eyes to the art of the possible and how we can move collectively to also get our hands on some of those resources. Because trust me, our mainstream colleagues, whether they like each other or not, they know how to come together collectively, work together, and get what they want. Okay, and that is what Kunle, that is what Stephen, that is what Bonnie did to get us to where we got to. We've got to increase. It can't be 3 people anymore. It's got to be a whole movement of all of us who are operating in this space. So yeah, I'm making the first move.
Thank you, Asher. And we really do need to expand that bandwidth. So thank you very much. I'd like to invite Sammy, who has raised his hand. Sammy, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question or comment? Can I also invite or request Charmin or colleagues in behind to pin Carol onto the screen so we have her as well as one of our keynote speakers, because it's time, general question time, Q&A time from the floor, virtual floor, to our guest speakers this evening. Thank you.
Hi, Nina. I think
And-
Carol had to drop out because she had another
Oh.
appointment. So I think she's not on the call anymore.
Oh, okay. So we might, Ditipriya, in that case, collect any questions we had or comments and feedback and
Yes.
share that with her in due course.
Yes.
Over to Sammy now. Thank you. Sammy, you need to unmute yourself. Sorry, you need to first
Sorry,
unmute.
it's the interpreters. The interpreters are unmuting for Sammy.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Can you see me? Just checking. Yeah. Yeah. It's saying, sorry, the interpreter just saying the other Rachel is interpreting for Sammy. Okay, so thank you so much for organising this amazing AGM. So much useful information and learning about Voices for Change for England. It's been absolutely interesting. One thing I want to think about is policy. And how you influence central government with policy. So I want to raise an issue that I talk about in my area of work at Deaf World. We focus on the youth and the young people from 11 to 25 who are deaf and hard of hearing. When they go to school, sometimes they talk about health, education and care plans, EHCPs, and a lot of students who are deaf don't really understand what they are. They're a bit shocked that these are needed for them to get support that they need for the future, for interpreting and things like that. And I feel that the government needs to recognise the youth services, especially because there are very, very few bespoke deaf services for young people. We really need some more support and investment in that. For example, in the NHS, for apprenticeships, for doctors, for audiologists, for speech therapy, for special educational needs, for disabled children with additional disabilities, including deafness. So everything that is given to young people in terms of educational support is all focused around their medical needs. There's nothing about the community. There's nothing about kind of social cohesion, social engagement. So that's an area that I really want to think about when we're actually talking to central government and influencing policy change. It's how we can really support social change for our young people. It's a massive area of concern for us, especially with the young deaf people as well. We want just a small amount of investment. It makes a massive impact, but we don't have recognition at all for the young deaf people of the UK. And we are a linguistic and cultural minority, as well as a diverse community. So just wondering how we can make more impact there.
Thank you very much, Sammy, for your observations and question there. And my apologies for interrupting your flow earlier. Could I request perhaps Kunle to start with, and maybe with Charmin to come in following Kunle if she has something to add there. Thank you both. Over to you, Kunle.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be quick because time is getting short. I think that the launch of the covenant last week, which I referenced in my introduction, is really, really important in terms of the whole issue of disability rights. If I'm looking at the UK at the moment, if I'm honest, disability seems to have slipped down the agenda. But there's two things happening. First of all is the covenant, and I know Cameron from Disability UK is involved in that, and I expect that when the joint board is set up, there will be some representation from disability groups on that board. I think the fund that Asharif referenced, the new 500 million that's coming onto the table, which is aimed squarely at young people, is going to be something also that I think disability activists should be looking at, how they can actually really connect with that. I'm in a kind of group with Cameron and Disability Rights UK. I think Ali from Equally Ours is also on this call. And we have been discussing for quite a number of years about how to also access government contracts for people with disabilities, from people from diverse backgrounds, and for women as well. And I think Charmaine referenced our contract readiness program in her notes. And that is it's going to be one of the most important areas of development. As she indicated, it was hugely successful in terms of the numbers of people who participated. In fact, we were left with a waiting list of around about 600 people still wanting to do the training that hasn't been satiated. So we are in discussion with central government and DCMS about bringing that program back in a new form with more resources. But again, it's a question of watch this space. But certainly in terms of pathway, we'll also be looking to enter into bilateral discussions about those particular, really specific aspects of enterprise development in terms of contract readiness, in terms of match trading, but also how that impacts the equality agenda. So yeah, stay in contact with us. I should also say that Charmaine herself has a specialist background in health, so she's well aware of these issues.
Thanks, Kunle. Sammy, first of all, thank you for attending our AGM. And we have, as you can see, we have BSO interpreters with us to support. And it's a question of, Kunle mentioned the covenant. One of the focus areas is participation and inclusion. So there are intersectionality. Yes, we are from BME groups, but that's not only the thing. I'm a woman and I'm from BME community. And people with disability from the BME community suffer an extra layer of barriers because they're not in the room. And, even people who can speak, if we don't, know about who is making the decisions on our behalf and who is around the table to make those decisions about resource allocation and developing policies that impacts us directly, then, people with disability, and it's all not just not able to hear and talk, but people with disability, I mean special educational needs, neurodiverse community, they're also left behind. And I'm speaking from a point of view that I'm a mum of children with special educational needs, so I understand the amount of barriers that there are to overcome. So I would say, Sammy, we are holding, as you heard, about reference group, and we'd welcome you to join our reference group for the Horizons London programme, and any other consultation that we do, engagement events that we do, we'd like to keep in touch, because you can inform us and we can, when we work collectively, as Carol mentioned and Asha mentioned, we need to work collaboratively to amplify our voices and to amplify that pressure, and with good data. And I mentioned already that I'm not just talking about statistics. They're out there, but I'm talking about people's lived experience. From your lived experience, you can inform at decision-making table if you're around that table, and we will support anyone. When we're as Voice4Change England, we are our members' proxy voices. We advocate on your behalf, so we will do that. So keep on engaging with us. Keep collaborative kind of approaches that we have to our stakeholder reference group. Be involved with that, and I'm sure we can work together collaboratively to reach in terms of health. But as I mentioned, there are intersectionality and there are other issues. They're all linked. So we can work together to address some of the issues you mentioned. But thank you very much for joining today's AGM.
And I'd like to echo what Sharmin has just said in relation to thanks and for bringing those issues up, particularly in relation to intersectionality and really addressing some of those needs. So I'm just looking for any more questions in this Q&A moment from the virtual floor. No? There don't seem to be any questions, which basically we're coming exactly to 8 o'clock this evening. Brings me to kind of summarize some of the proceedings from this evening. We've had some two excellent speeches from our guest speakers, thanking Carol in her absence, and also Asher Craig, who's still with us, and all of the attendees. You'll agree with me when I say I think those were very inspiring speeches. Things that really struck a chord with me were ideas around justice, social justice, economic justice, and all the other ideas around co-creation and sort of building relevance here and now, but also kind of really increasing. I really liked Carol's idea about radical solidarity. And I think that's really important. And it spoke really well with how Asher connected that to issues talking about, it's about bringing the investment where we need it. And we are in that frame, we are in that space now. And what I'd like to remind ourselves, we might be in the spaces doing all of the work, but we cannot do this effectively, efficiently, and in ways that actually become meaningful without your support. So the language that we speak, the language in which we wish to communicate these issues to government actually come from our members. So we need to understand more from you. So thank you in that regard to Sammy, who spoke earlier. I was also struck when both Kunle and Sharmin were giving their updates. I was struck by our members and our growing members from across the regions, having done an audit and cleaning up some of our membership data. Sharmin and the team behind, I know how much hard work there has gone in kind of supporting that. But it is pretty clear, colleagues, you all saw that pie chart. We need more and engagement and collaborative partnership work, like Asher said, with all of you in other regions beyond London. So those of you who are here today on this call, understanding all of the opportunities, the possibilities, the potential that is out there in supporting this collaboration and partnership work, not just through Pathway, but more importantly, through all of the work that Voice4Change England is doing strategically in its work, focusing on policy, more recently, the kind of the covenant that Kunle outlined, and how do we reset our relationship with the current government? How do we explore new possibilities of economic change, but change that really brings health, vitality, sustainability, and a real program and agenda of growth, and how we flourish, help our communities flourish where they are. So I think those are some of the key important points. I also feel in terms of campaigning, in terms of communications, we have dedicated teams within Voice4Change England, infrastructure development, and to each team, on behalf of the trustees, I'd like to say a huge thanks, because the work in the background is not easy. The work in the background is tough, it's onerous, and we are aware how much time our teams and our individual staff members have dedicated to bringing some of this rich work that really fulfills potential, that really explores beyond, what possibilities there are to really help develop at a national level and contribute to this racial equity program we are talking about. And in conclusion, really just to say that, some of the things that both Asher this evening and Carol talked about really, again, helped me think about something that we perhaps do well at Voice for Change. And I'm really proud of the work we do. And I'm really committed to this change. And it brings me to just suggest and leave us thinking about radical candor. And radical candor being one of the ways in which we can really bring home the importance of how we provide feedback, not just to national government, but to our kind of local, to our engagement, that Charmin was talking about at a local level, democratic engagement, civic participation, and within that, growing opportunities for more community engagement, not just within our communities, but helping them expand, engagement and true collaboration amongst each other, but also beyond those borders as well. But I think it's also our ability, and in that radical candor, I shape collectively on behalf of our trustees, a huge commendation to both Kunle and Charmin, who have together really helped develop this radical candor, our approach to how we work, how we deliver in a critical way, but also with compassion and kindness and sincerity. And I hope we continue to develop and deliver and implement some of the work that we have been doing, but also in growing and shaping that in the future, and we can't do that without yourselves. So this evening, I'd just like to thank everyone who are present here today virtually, who perhaps some of you who have left, but a huge thanks for giving up your evening and your commitment as members of Voice for Change to help us and support us in building this racial equity program that we are driving in partnership with organizations across, and building those collaborations that I think Asha is really keen on developing. So we are with you. And really a huge thanks also to my colleagues, the treasurer, Ela, who works so just like all the time, just helping us develop some of those really kind of key ways of working, helping build us capacity, helping develop our programs, the grants programs in every single way. How Carl also, who's present here, has helped and supported the development of key areas of growth beyond London, which is great. And he absolutely champions and embodies that effort. So a huge thanks to Carl, and really kind of looking forward to meeting our new trustees in due course, but leaving you all this evening with some of these thoughts about how we can truly develop anti-racist policies, build programs of action, of growth and sustainable growth, to look at not just social justice, but also racial equity as we drive our work forward. So on that note, the evening is handed back to you, colleagues, and thank you so much for attending. Can I just check if my colleagues had anything else to add, both Carl or Ela? Charmin?
No, I'll let Carla Dila speak.
Thank you.
Ela, do you want to go first?
No, I don't have anything more to add. I think, Nina, you've summed it up very well. Thank you. You've done some excellent sharing today.
Yeah, I agree, Nina. It's an excellent summarization of the event. And for me, looking at some of the comments in the chat, I couldn't say any better than that. It has been one of the best AGMs, and I'm saying that without prejudice, that I've been involved in because of the content of the discussion. So thank you so much for all who have put it together and delivered it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Carl. And we have Joseph. Joseph, would you like to unmute yourself?
Sorry, I was trying to put a goodbye
Oh,
sign on.
that's okay.
I clicked the wrong one. Sorry.
No, that's absolutely fine. Thank you so much for
Anyways,
attending
it's
this
a nice
evening.
AGM and glad to be here. Yeah.
Thanks very much. Thank you very much. Okay, Sharmin, did you want to come in?
Yes, on behalf of all team members, staff members, and Voice4Change England, we'd like to thank you, the trustees, for your, all the support that you've given Voice4Change England. And I believe all of you have been, long-standing and founding members. So I think, thank you all the trustees, but also Nina for chairing today's AGM so well. So a round of applause for you, Nina, for chairing, and all the trustees for your support and guidance. And I'll hand over to Kunde. Kunde, if you want to say something. Oh, Kunde doing clapping hands. So thank you. And I'd like just to say that Voice4Change England team, can you just stay behind once everyone leaves? Thanks. Just for a minute. I'd like to thank everyone from comms team to organizational support, ID team, policy team. They've all worked behind all those flashy slides. So they've all contributed. So thank you very much for all of your contribution and behind the scenes work. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharmin, and thanks especially to both the Rachels from BSL. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a lovely evening and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Sammy. Are we still recording? Vicky, do you want to stop recording? Please, thank you.